Welcome to this edition of the Native News Update on this Thursday, January 21st. I'm your host for today's program, Paul Demain. Many of the stories read here can also be found at our website at IndianCountryNews.com. Here are the news stories from the day from the Associated Press and an interview with Mark Trahant on healthcare. The Dr. Mike and Linda Shinkle collection, People of the Turtle, began as an effort to pay tribute to the Eastern Woodland tribes. Their story was entrusted to artist Evelyn J. Ritter, who created 40 oil-on-canvas portraits. The series of portraits were then inspiration for the book Always a People, comprised by Rita Cohn and W. Linwood Montel. The tone of their story is one of beauty, survival, and vitality. This exciting collection preserves and promotes their culture and language while providing diversity to the general public. The Dr. Mike and Linda Shinkle collection, People of the Turtle, showcases a great appreciation and support for the history, people, and stories of the Eastern Woodland Indians, and will now be on exhibit at the Mount Pleasant, Michigan Z.B. Wing Center of Anishinaabe Culture Lifeways, starting on Saturday, January 30th. Firekeepers Casino in Michigan has upped the ante of fine dining in Michigan. A total of 12 sous chefs are challenged in an Iron Sous Chef competition to create the newest and most innovative dishes. The competition includes 4 rounds that started on January 20th and ends February 5th and features 2 chefs going head-to-head, racing against a 2-hour deadline and cooking with an assigned secret ingredient. Judges of the first 3 rounds will be done by executive team members of the Firekeepers Casino. The winners will then go on to compete in the next round. The final round will be judged by local reporters, food critic, DJs, and news anchors on February 5th. The winner of the competition will have a dish featured in Nibi, Firekeepers' fine dining restaurant. Firekeepers Casino is located off of Interstate 94 in Battle Creek, Michigan. The property, which features 107,000 square feet gaming floor with 2,680 slot machines, is owned and operated by the Natawasapi Huron Band of Potawatomi. And in our continuing discussions on national health care, we're going to have a discussion again with Mark Trahant. Bear with us. His video stream was a little bit shaky today, but he's talking about the potential train wreck of the Indian Healthcare Improvement Act as part of the total legislation on national health care.
Yesterday I said we were going to have a discussion today about the possible train wreck of the Indian Healthcare Improvement Act. And overnight, the dynamics of the national health care bill have changed. What can you tell us about what's happened here now with the election of a new Republican Massachusetts senator?
Well, being the journalist that I am, let me go deep into history.
Yes.
When the original Indian Health Care Improvement Act passed Congress in 1976, there was no Republican opposition votes. In fact, in one of the first hearings, it was Barry Goldwater who got up on the Senate floor and talked about the need for the legislation and how important it was. So I think that, as much as anything, reflects how the climate has just shifted in the last 30-some years.
Tremendously.
We're at the point now where who knows what's going to happen. The president said yesterday and again today that he wants a smaller bill to still go through. Whether that includes the Indian Health Care Improvement Act, I think, is going to be a tough one. It seems to me that it ought to be a natural, but boy, as they pare it down, it might be a tough call.
I was going to say, considering that it was a package that seemed to be undamaged both in the House and Senate versions of the bill, that it would be kind of like one of those no-brainers and saying, okay, there doesn't seem to be a lot of opposition to this.
Right. And it's really a tiny amount of money compared to the health care reform measures. So keep our fingers crossed. The other possibility is that Senator Dorgan, as he gets ready to leave the Congress, could make this his final push and pull in all the chits he's got and try to get it through as its own standalone bill. He's working against the calendar. It's very tough to move stuff this late, but you think stranger things have happened.
This would be just the Indian Health Care Improvement Act. They would strip it out of the other bill, the National Health Bill, and move it along that way.
Right, exactly.
Okay. Now, the President Obama has said that he wants a pared down bill. Is he likely to even get that with the way things seem to be evolving on this? It seemed like the Massachusetts vote was an anti-health care bill vote. People note that it's a state where something like 90% of all the people seem to be able to afford their own health insurance. So it's unlike some of the other poorer states in the country that a whole different dynamic might have occurred under the same situations. But this guy seemed to have run on an anti-health bill type mandate.
Right. And I mean, that's one of the great ironies in this is that Massachusetts already has healthcare reform. They have mandatory required health insurance in that state. And if you don't buy insurance, you pay a penalty, which is what they were trying to do with the larger measure. So in that sense, it wasn't the same kind of issue there as it is everywhere else. That said, given the political courage on Capitol Hill, the Democrats in close races are scurrying for cover. And they're looking for any exit they can find, and they're going to take advantage of this one.
Yeah, so, well, that's. Do you think that, I mean, we may find that in the next couple of days, people are going to start bowing out of their support for this bill and simply kill the whole thing.
I'm afraid that's very possible.
So it passed away for all kinds of reasons you hadn't anticipated. I know a couple months ago you were saying there was other reasons this bill could die, but this seemed to be one of those unforeseen dynamics that just a couple months ago, I don't think anyone would have thought that this Senator Ted Kennedy's seat would have gone to a Republican, that it was a safe Democratic seat. So,
right. And you think about, I mean, there are a lot of what ifs, and folks are going to be blaming people like crazy. But what if they had run Victoria Kennedy for that seat? It would have been a very different dynamic in the race. Then it would have been much more about Ted Kennedy's legacy rather than Obama. And Scott Brown ran a pretty smart campaign. So you kind of have a bunch of factors there that you just couldn't predict.
Yeah. Well, in some ways, you have a hard time overcoming a centerfold campaign, I guess.
Right.
He's got some nice pictures of him in centerfolds. But anyway,
we both worked for Hearst, but I kept my clothes on.
Oh. Well, so what do you think in the next few days that we're going to see on this thing? Is Indian country going to coalesce around a potential alternative? Do you think that the clinics and the directors and tribal chairmen are going to come around and basically begin pushing? Because the whole Indian Healthcare Improvement Act is something separate. It was folded into this bill, and at this point, it was kind of riding along without a whole lot of need for any pushing. Yeah.
I think that's what's going to have to happen is folks are going to have to come up with a strategy and then coalesce around it and then fight like hell for it. As far as the larger issue, if you go back and read the Medicare debates from the 1960s, they lost the first time around on that. And they went to the polls as a mandate and said, this is what we lost. This is what we'd like to do. Let's nationalize this election. And I think there might be an opportunity to do that again, to say, this is the stakes. I mean, to me, universal coverage was his primary focus, and I think that's a good one. But the demographics, I think, are the real thing that we have to address, that we're going to run out of money pretty quick if we don't deal with healthcare. And it's whether it's now or 10 years from now, we've got to do this. And it's going to be painful. It's not something everyone's going to like. And we just got to keep pressing on that.
It's going to come back again and again and again in some way, form, or fashion.
What we have now is not sustainable. That's the bottom line.
Right. Where are you going next on this whole issue? Are you headed to D.C. again?
I may. In March, I'm going to D.C. I'm going to go up to Alaska week after next and visit the Alaska Native Medical Center, among other things, which is kind of the jewel in the crown of the Indian health system.
I've been there. When you're up there, take a few shots of the place. It's very beautiful. They've got these little wings on the ends of the hospital up there where families can come together that are filled with artwork, lots of windows, lots of light, lots of openness. I thought that if I wanted to go to a hospital that felt less like a hospital, at least in the area that I was, and something that was very comforting. I mean, that was one of them, was Alaska. So get some shots of that. We want to see a report from you on that.
Will do.
All right. Thanks, Mark, for checking in.
And that is the latest roundup of news from Indian Country on this edition of the Native News Update. We want to thank all you for coming and joining with us. Come back again soon. Miigwech.